All right, so we are going to end tonight by just kind of sharing with each other two books. Well, there'll be two books in total, one from me, one from you, about some things that we think that the other person hasn't read that means something to us individually. So, Carl, I know you've got some type of big book that's going there. Do you want to start us off, or do you want to take us home?
I'll start us off. So,
What do you got for me?
what I grabbed was Reborn by Mark Miller and Greg Capullo. Now, you know how I am a big fan of Greg Capullo's work, and I follow him with whatever he does. Have you read this before?
I have
By the way,
not. I
all right.
don't. Miller does not
It's not
tend to
your
be a guy I go out of my way for.
yeah.
So this is the so talk to me. This is coming in blank canvas.
What I like is that it's a six issue series. It's pretty limited, and what I think what Miller does is he has concepts, but they don't always they I think they work best in shorter formats because the premise of this book is it's what happens after we die. And it's a story of it starts off with Bonnie. She's an older woman, and
You've talked about this on one of your
I,
videos,
I
right?
have, yeah, I
And you
actually
have
have.
an original page, or
I
at least
do
one.
actually.
Okay,
I have two from
I
the
have a
series.
vague recollection of this, and this was like one of the ones. This is a little older when your daughter was when your
Yes.
wife was pregnant with and you were starting
Yes.
to. I have not read this, but I have a vague recollection of it from what you've said.
And that's why like there's times where when you read books at a certain time in your life and that's I read this book as we were pregnant with our first child, my daughter, and the story is like I said, Bonnie is this older woman. She passes away and then she goes to this fantasy world, and it's the premise is, what happens after we pass on, and she goes to this fantasy world, and it's populated by all the people that she knew when she was alive. And the thing that gets me now, even like looking back, is the main characters that she interacts with. It's an adventure that she goes on in this fantasy world with her father who had passed away, and her dog, her childhood dog, is now also there waiting for her. And it's a the story is, and she's kind of the chosen one. She shows up, and then she's the chosen one that's going to go and attack this the big bad evil of the book. And it's fairly simple in that way, the premise of what the book is, but for a lot of it, it's the art. It's the Greg Capullo art that I just I love when he's given the opportunity to do some wonderful world building. It's not just I love the Batman run, but it's still it's he's kind of constrained to the world of Gotham. I liked his metal and death metal stuff because it's him getting to play in a bigger playground and just kind of going to town on designs, and that's what you get in this book. And but at the heart of it, I think I've heard very mixed things on it, so I know that it's not not regarded necessarily as his people's favorite series from him or favorite series from Miller either, but it has to do more with when I read this and what it kind of imprinted on me and the mindset that I was going through in reading it. Because when you have kids, there's that sense of you're immediately you think about mortality more because you're like, now there are these other humans that are counting on you to be around, and it just you think more about those things, and that hit me at that time in my life. So I recommend it. It's good, but it's like I said, it's the art that really drives it home for me.
I have a very similar reaction with Mr. Miracle by Tom King and Miss Gerard's, where I my wife was pregnant with our daughter, our first child, and at that point I was, we were doing the like the parents to be classes. We were living away from family, so it was kind of just us. None of our friends had kids. We were sort of like the first ones that were out there. I was trying to read books about it, and it felt very overwhelming. Like I remember the book that had been recommended was The Expectant Father, and I was reading that, and I'm like, this is doing nothing for me. I can't like I got to like the third chapter, and I was like, I'm I don't care. Like this is not speaking to me. I'm gonna
Not
put this down.
responding in the way that was
Yeah.
intended, and
And this is not the book that I've chosen for it, but in the same way that it has that connection for you, I read independently of that Tom King's Mr. Miracle, And I guess mini spoiler if you haven't read the book, but it's at this point, I think the statute of
It's
limitations is
yeah,
over.
it's fine.
Um, that book deals a lot with the relationship of Big Barda and Mr. Miracle, and they end up becoming pregnant. And a lot of that book is like them navigating their lives as superheroes, which I am not. But I do have my identity outside of being a dad, and especially at that point, and then sort of like getting ready for all of that to go in, and then fitting this child into your life, which they didn't weren't necessarily planning on having. They weren't not planning on having it, but it was just, they're in the middle of an intergalactic war and they have to sort of juggle back and forth being parents and having this new priority going in there. And it was exactly the book that I needed at that point in time and will always speak to me in that way. Just like it was the best book on being a new father. And it was just what I needed at that point. And
Great.
it sounds like Reborn was that for you.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything that heavy because I was
Please,
like, hey,
that's fine. Yeah.
my thinking when I grabbed this was I was like, hey, Carl's a guy who likes art. I'm gonna get one of my absolute favorite big books when it comes to the art. So I think for my money, the best value for sort of size of book to price is the Dark Horse Library editions. I would say followed very closely because I think they're more or less the same book with the Remender size
The
image
large.
hardcovers.
Yeah.
But the Dark Horse Library editions are almost exactly the same as the DC Absolutes, but typically about half or less of the price. And of all of my library editions, my favorite is this book called Ether, which
Mm.
is by Matt Kent and David Rubin. And it is this wild story about it's a fantasy world where a man of science goes in and like he's in this high magic society and it starts off there's a murder mystery where basically a god is murdered and it's a locked room mystery and he's going about it from a scientific perspective believing that everything can be explained by science and it's this lighthearted sort of like pulp adventure. It harkens back to an earlier age. If I get this open and kind of explain this instead, um, David Rubin has some of
Oh,
my favorite art, just beautiful colors
yeah.
that are going in. Uh, I should get my dust jacket off so I can show this off easier. Also, it has like a purple ribbon, which just like that's already getting me.
It's all in the
Um,
presentation.
oh yeah, I'm a sucker for but yeah, we get the Blaze, who's been the series from there has been murdered, and then they go and they find that she was murdered with like a sentient bullet, and it's this very cool story of this man of science in a world of magic, and you meet these larger than life characters, and it again it seems very much like it's going to be a pulp adventure, and then you get to the end of the first issue and you find out that he is a man of two worlds, where he goes back to the present day, where he is basically homeless,
Wow.
because he is spending his time and energy in this other world. And as it goes on, it sort of fleshes out the differences that he has there. And you find out the things that he had to give up in this world in order to sort of be the magical adventurer that he wanted to be in
Is
that world. And we, we're talking, we have a great love of dad stories and things like that. Sometimes you're not so good a dad, and sometimes you're not great, like Mr. Miracle was about giving up the things in your life in order to pursue sort of what needs to
what?
happen with your kids and everything like that. And you put yourself first in the sense of adventure and exploration. And you go into this world where you get to be the person that you want to be. But as time goes by, and especially because time travels at a different pace in the real world than it does out there, you find out that you miss some things. And as time goes on and the more things you miss, you find out it's easier to keep missing those things. And as the people start to begrudge you more and more in the real world, and you aren't the person that you want there and you're not getting the reaction when you go there, it's easier and easier to
Just
sink into this fantasy realm. And it's it walks the line between this like fun, lighthearted pulp adventure and this like pretty heavy story about a man who was not there for his family and especially his daughter, and sort of them navigating that and sort of his legacy in this world that they can't be a part of, and what he is there. And it is all the while done with this just amazing art
yeah,
by
that
David Rubin, and especially the color work. I think the color work is just really the biggest thing
I mean
that goes in.
that's what jumps out when you show the pages. I mean, that's
Yeah,
immediately
I love his line work, but I mean the color work is just really what makes it pop, and really where I'd say like,
yeah,
unfortunately,
yeah,
this library edition is out of print. You can still get the story. They
yeah,
have what they refer to as the omnibus edition. It's a standard size paperback where it's the three different Ether stories put together. So it's Ether is 18 issues altogether. It's three different sort of mini series that all tie in together, Ether 1, 2, and 3. But if you ever find
that
this at a
yeah, that's
reasonable
the
price, this is bar none my favorite of the Dark Horse apps or
library edition.
library. And
Yeah,
I say that full well knowing that there are things like Lady Killer by Joelle Jones. I still have my Alien, of the original Alien stuff in that.
yeah.
There's so many good ones, but I love David Rubin's work so much. And Matt Kint is a guy who doesn't miss for me as
Yeah,
far as that
that's wild.
goes.
You know what's crazy about the two books that we chose? They involved this dual world where there's the real world in Reborn, and there's also then the fantasy world within, and things are happening in both of those worlds. Because in Reborn, there's Bonnie kind of she's not. You realize that she's not fully. She hasn't fully passed on, and there's opportunities to, the what do you do? Do you go back to the land of the living? Do you stay in this world that is kind of you are the chosen one, and you all your loved ones are there, and
Mhm.
there's some kind of back and forth that happens. But kudos on finding something that was
I'll be honest,
unintentionally related.
I
Like,
backdoored into that because, again, my only thing so a little look behind the curtain. We were looking for a prompt to kind of give this preview here, and I was like, all right, just go find a book you think I haven't read. And as far as for me, for Carl, I was like, okay, cool, I could pick this and do any of that, but I was like,
yeah,
what's the prettiest art in the biggest format I have that's
like
not a DC Absolute? And I was like, ooh, I'll go with that. And I was like, oh. Wait a sec. This is a dad story. Even when I'm not trying to pick a dad story, I can't get
eh,
away from dad
to be
stories.
fair, the dad part of it had nothing to do with why I grabbed this book.
Yep.
Maybe it did. I don't know. But as far as the theme of what we want to do here, like that was not what I thought when we just said, okay, go grab a book. It was more of like, I don't think Bunk has read this book before, and I just love the art in it, which I've talked about before. But like, there is that personal connection as well. So yeah, even when we're not dadding, we're dadding.
Yeah, you can't get away from it.
These are the
It's
things that
always
the
there. Even when I'm just like, what's the prettiest art? I'm like,
yeah.
dad book.
But that's the stuff that speaks to us now. Like
Yeah,
that's
man. All right. Well, this has been a special sneak peek of what you can expect in Tired Dads. We're not entirely sure where you're going to find it or when you're going to find it next, but when you do, keep it locked.
take care.